Have you ever wondered how big real estate companies are able to turn property data into a profit? Stick around. In today's video, we're going to be learning just that. Welcome back to another video on the power of the BI. Welcome back to another video on the power of the BI, another Power of Money Monday. Welcome back to another Power of Money Monday. Today in Power of Money Monday, we are going to be talking real estate. We're going to be talking real estate. We're going to be analyzing a real estate company. I believe probably one of the, well, I'm sure is one of the largest real estate companies. Excuse me. One of the largest real estate companies in the world. It's called CBRE. One of the largest real estate companies in the world called CBRE. I'm not going to go too deep into the history of the company. I do find the history of the company to be somewhat fascinating. I believe it was, I believe the CB is Caldwell Banker and RE is Richard Ellis. I believe at one time it may have been CB Richard Ellis, not necessarily sure, never worked for the company. Here's the deal, as always, I must let you know, I do not work for CBRE. I've never worked for CBRE, even though I have a construction related background, which is somewhat similar to the industry in which they are in. But I don't work for CBRE. I've never worked for CBRE. Don't even have a real estate license. Right? Don't even have a real estate license. But what I will say is I have had a mortgage broker's license before, and I did study a little bit on CBRE way back in the day. Don't currently have a mortgage broker's license. Let it expire many years ago. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to make sure you guys understand that I do not work for CBRE. I do not own stock in CBRE, and we are going to be analyzing some of their stock information over the past year or so. We're not going to get too deep into that, but just want to make sure you understand that I do not, CBRE is not paying me. This is not a paid presentation for CBRE by CBRE. This is just a company that I thought was pretty fascinating that I decided to create the real estate report on, or create this class. Create this portion of the class using real estate and discussing real estate using CBRE. So with that said, we're going to get right on into this thing. As you already know, I'm not going to spend too much time going through the website here on CBRE, but the reason why I like to go through to use the website is because building a Power BI report is bigger than just data visualizations. It's bigger than just the data set itself. You know, you need to have some idea of who the company is, what the company does, in order to really, you know, ingrain yourself into building this Power BI report of whatever company you're building. So I like to go through the website just as a research piece, so that you can get an idea of who the company is, what the company does, and then it'll give you some idea of the data sets that you're looking for, that you're trying to build, if the data sets are not already given to you. Let me clarify that for you. In many cases, you may be asked to create a Power BI report for a company, for an organization, but you will not be given the data set. You may be given data, right? You may be given access to the data, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like, you know, well, what am I really doing? And I'm not going to say that it's impossible to build the Power BI report, because I've done it before. So I'm not going to say that it's impossible to build a Power BI report and not necessarily know anything about the company, not necessarily do any research on the company. Again, I've done it before, and I don't advise doing it unless you are, unless you're seasoned within the industry. And even still, I would say you still want to do a little bit of research on the company. So what I do is I think it's a great idea to go to the website and just get an idea of who the company is and what the company does. So we're just going to go through the website just to give you some idea of understanding the historical data, or not the research data. So here I'm on CBRE.com. Just come over to CBRE.com, and I want to see, you know, what kind of services do these guys provide. And let's see, where potential becomes real. And of course, that's probably a kind of a play on real estate, LSAI, U.S. market outlook. So we know they've got some AI components, some U.S. market component, but it says U.S. market outlook. So it's probably another piece to this as well, outside of the U.S. market. What do we do? Deliver market knowledge and global insights. Insights, that sounds like a business intelligence term, artificial intelligence term, not necessarily artificial, but business intelligence. Create the real estate solutions of tomorrow. That's good sales marketing type deal there. U.S. cap rate, latest insights, U.S. cap rate, challenges, the commitment, the story. If you want to learn more about the story of CBRE and some of the things that I kind of hinted on previously or earlier, you can do that as well. We're not going to go too deep into the story, corporate responsibility, sustainability, core values. So this to me is more about the company, not necessarily the services themselves. Let's see here. Insights and research. Let's see, what exactly does insights and research mean? I'm gonna go to a bigger screen over here because it's kind of hard for me to see that small screen. Let's see. Where your potential becomes real. So I'm really not getting a whole lot of information that I'm thinking I would be using when it comes to a real estate company. The freedom to create your own path is really more, so far it's more looking like information. If you were just looking for information about the company, but what does the company really do? I'm not getting that. I'm not getting that right now. Let's see, so I'm gonna go up and go back over to properties. Now I know that they do something with properties because they've got a link here at the top of the page called properties for lease. So now that's giving me some idea that I should be looking for lease properties. I've got a map here showing where the different properties are for lease. I've got different pictures here, descriptions of properties that are for lease. So this is good information. And now I'm getting information here about some of the data that I may be looking for. I'm looking for data. When I get inside the data set, when I say inside the data set, inside the tables, inside the database, I'm going to be looking for information on lease properties. I'm going to be looking for tables about lease properties. Let's see here. Properties. Let's see, what other properties do they have? Properties for sale. So if I come back and I see properties, I know we got for lease properties, we got properties for sale. So I'm going to come back over and I want to see what's going on with their properties for sale. So now I'm getting some information about the investment properties, and well, not the investment properties, but the type of business that these guys are into. And just like with the lease properties, they got properties for sale. They've got different locations that they're in. They've got the descriptions, not necessarily knowing exactly, because I believe they've got probably more descriptions. Let's see. Yeah, they've got fewer descriptions than they have properties for sale. So that's pretty much telling me that, this is probably the top, top 5 or top 10 facilities that are for sale. And then also I saw that they had investment properties for sale. So there were properties for lease, there was properties for sale, and then there were investment properties for sale. And here we see all of the investment properties. Well, not all of the investment properties, but we see some of the investment properties that they have or are listing for sale. Now, this is a little bit different than, when you go to a regular website, a regular residential website, when you're looking for a home, it's similar, but in this particular case, they've got investment properties, I've never seen this before. I've never been to this particular portion of the website, so this is new to me, which is good, because as a Power BI developer, you could be talking about a company, or you could be introduced to a company that could be very brand new to you, and going to the website gives you some information. So now I know that some of the things that I'm looking for when I go inside the database is I'm looking for properties. I'm looking for tables about properties. I'm looking for the property tables on leasing, property table on properties for sale, and property and tables for investment properties for sale. In addition to, I'm looking for locations, and where these properties are for lease, where these properties are for sale, where these investment properties are for sale. I'm looking for where those locations are, because they could very well be looking for a map visual. They could be, or a map visualization. They could be looking for information on how many properties are available within a particular area. What's the square footage on these properties that are available for sale? What's the square footage on the properties that are available for lease? These are some of the things that I'm looking for. So I'm looking for size, I'm looking for dimensions, I'm looking for tables that's going to be describing these investment describing these properties. So I know that CBRE is a real estate company, and now I see that the type of real estate that they're off into is looks like big properties, probably more so commercial than residential. If I come up to property type, I can select different property types. And if I select different property types, now I get to see what different types of properties are for sale, and I can probably do the same things for leases and stuff like that. So I'm getting an idea now of what businesses, what real estate is for sale, what real estate is for lease, what investment properties are for lease or for sale. So that gives me somewhat of an idea. I'm not going to go too deep into CBRE and their website, but this gives you some idea of how to go to the website, do some research, and get a jump start on some of the types of data that you're going to be looking for when you are when you are starting to create your data soup or analyze your data soup. And the data soup simply is going in and seeing what type of data is out there, how much data is out there, and where is the specific type of data that you may want to go launch at first, because you already know that, hey, I know these guys do sale, they do lease, and they do investment properties for sale. So, you're at least you pinpointed something to get started with. It's not going to be where you end, but it's going to give you something to get started with. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time here on the website and the research on the website. I think you guys probably get a pretty good idea of what that looks like. What we're going to do now is we're going to do just a little bit more research before we get into the Power BI report, just a little bit more research. And the research that we're going to do now is going to be on the investor relations. And the reason why I like to do investor relations is because it gives us some idea of what the company looks like from an investor standpoint. The website gives us an idea of what the general public is, how the general public is looking at the company. For instance, we know here that the CBRE is a major real estate company now, and we know that it does it sells properties, it leases properties, and it sells investment properties. But that, to me, that is looking at it from the standpoint of someone or a business that is looking to sell their business, or a major apartment complex, food chain. Someone's looking to sell their business. And they're looking for CBRE as the real estate company to do that work for them, to sell that property. Well, that's one way of looking at the company. But another way of looking at the company is from an investor standpoint. How does an investor look at CBRE, or look at a real estate company? An investor is not looking to see what is being sold or what is being leased per se. I mean, that may be some general information that they want to know, but for the most part, they want to know, can that company make money? Can the real estate company help them make money? right? When an investor invests into a business, and definitely a real estate investor, but not, I say definitely because I've dealt with real estate investors before. But when you're talking about a real estate investor, they're saying, hey, you know, the type of business you're in, the type of real estate that you're in, can you make money for me? Can my money make money? Can I get a quick return on my money? Right? Those are the kind of questions that investors in real estate are asking. So we want to do a quick research on, you know, what the investors think about the company, and the primary way that the investors are going to have some type of thought process on this particular company, given that it is a publicly traded company, is via its 10K or 10Q report. Now, the 10K, the 10Q is a quarterly report. Given that this company is CBRE is a publicly traded company, there's information that it has to provide, that it has to file with the SEC, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission. Since it has provided that information, those filings have to be provided. That information is public because it is a publicly traded company. So anyone that is investing into this company, anyone that's buying stocks into this company, or investing in stocks in this company, they deserve to have the right to know what is how this business is generating revenue, how it's intending to make a profit, and that will allow the investor to make a decision on whether or not they want to participate in this venture or not participate in this venture. And this venture being investing into this publicly traded company. And again, this publicly traded company is a real estate company, and it is CBRE. So just some general information on that information that's provided. The information that's provided is two primary forms of filings that a publicly traded company has to provide to the SEC that has to be made public. One is a 10Q report and the other is a 10K report. A 10Q report is a quarterly report filed quarterly. Quarterly can be January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So here's the deal though. The month, the order of the months as the common person knows it, does not have to be, that quarter of the company does not have to be set in that manner. It just has to be set. What I mean by that is the first quarter of CBRE does not necessarily have to be January, February, March. It could be June, July, August. Second quarter could be September, well, not June, July, August, June, July, August, September, October, November. No, July, the first quarter could be July, August, September, and the second quarter could be October, November, December. It could be the order of however they set their company up, however they initially say that they are going to provide information to the SEC. It just has to be on. It just has to be on that increment, if I could use increment as a term in that particular instance. But bottom line is, there are 4 quarters in the year. There are 12 months. There are 4 quarters. So the year is broken up 4 times, 4 different ways, and those 3 months, every 3 months is a quarter. Now, the filings that are filed to the SEC are the 2 major filings that are filed to the SEC is a 10Q report and a 10K report. A 10Q report is a quarterly report. The 10K report is an annual report, meaning the annual report is only filed once a year and the quarterly reports are filed every quarter. The quarterly reports, for the lack of any better term, are not as in-depth as the 10K report. And if I remember correctly, the 10Q reports do not have to be audited. However, the 10K report has to be audited. It has to be audited by an outside auditor. So with that said, again, the 10Q report is filed quarterly, once a quarter. The 10K report, which is annual, is filed annually, once a year. So here we are looking here at the investor relations, and we are going to go to view all reports, and let's see, it's hard for me to see here on this small screen. I'm trying to pull up the 10K. trying to pull up the 10K report here. It was just kind of small for me. I'm gonna go to 2024. That's a press release. Let's see. Oh, I viewed all news, and I view all reports. That's why I got there. Let's come back down, investor relations, and all quarters, FY 2024. Here we go. Just bring this back over to the screen so we can see what's going on. So what I did was I just went to investor relations where we already were, and I went back and I found investor relations at the bottom of the page, and then I went to view all reports, and we're going to view the 10K report again, which is the annual report, and it's the 10K report for 2024. Let's do something here. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Now, so here's the deal. There's a lot of gobbledygook in the beginning of most quarterly and annual reports. That is a lot of legal mumbo jumbo, but it is very important for us just to scroll through and to get some idea of, what we are looking at here in the reports. Of course, here we can see, how this report is broken up. Again, we are only doing research here. Part 1 is the company overview, business segments. Definitely want to have some idea of business segments. And if I just had to guess, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here on the report, but if I just had to guess, in the business segments, we're going to find information on leasing and sales and investment properties, because that was some of the first things that we saw on the website. Let's see, real estate. What does that say? Real estate investments. I believe that's what it is, but probably could see. Global workspace, corporate and other segments, competitive positioning. So basically with this annual report, we are going to be getting the overall information. Human capital basically is human resources. So I believe, not totally sure, but I believe that's what it is, human capital, intellectual property, what do they really own, whether it be digital things, trademarks, logos, intellectual property. But at the end of the day, that is not what we were probably placing in the report, with the exception of placing the logo on the report. But so, I don't, unless they ask for specific information about intellectual property to be placed in the report, we will not be doing that, or you probably should not be doing that, or I'm gonna say you should not. You probably don't have to do that. The primary information I know, or the primary data that I know probably should be in the report, again, is the leasing information, the square footage information, the leasing information, the sales information, the investment property information, because that was some of the first information that they showed on the website. The information in the Power BI report, it could be built off of the website. It could be built off of the information in the quarterly report or the annual report. But here's the deal. We're not going to spend too much time in the annual report, because it is going to be more information, gobbledygook about legal information. We did find some information earlier, human capital, that they may want to know how many managers are in a certain area, how many salespeople on a certain team or in a certain state, stuff like that. That pops out at me when I look at the investor relations, the annual report, and looking at the website. But we're just using the annual report as research. We're not going to be building out any financial statements, anything like that. As you will see here in the annual report, there is a lot of financial data. Unless it's a report that you're asked to build financial data, you're not going to be creating business business financial statements. That does not mean you can't use the data to create quick profits and quick revenue, but the in-depth level of creating the actual business statements, financial statements, income statements, balance sheets, we're not going to be doing that here, and you probably won't be doing that on the job initially. But I do highly encourage companies to begin using Power BI to build out their income statements and their their financial statements, because it does automate the system for them. It's just a lot more in depth. It's a lot more involved. There's a lot of work to it, but once the work is done, it does reduce the amount of work and the amount of time that it'll take the companies to close at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year. That's a whole nother conversation. We're not getting into the accounting side of this thing, but we're just looking at the income, the annual statement and the annual report, just doing some research. So with that said, we spend pretty good amount of time here. We're not going to spend all day here on the annual report. We're getting into the accounting portion now. So we see that there's some accounting and there's some financial statements that are here inside the annual report. We're not going to get too deep into this information, because I'm not trying to profess to be an accountant or a financial advisor. We're just using this as research, and I advise you to use the annual report or the quarterly report, or the annual report and the quarterly report for research when you are building out a Power BI report for a publicly traded company that you probably don't know anything about, unless it's the company that you're already working for. Then you ain't necessarily got to do all of that research, because you got inside information to where you can go to certain individuals and ask for the information that you're looking for anyway. So we are going to move on. I just wanted to give you this information. So now we've looked at the website, we've looked at the financial, we've looked at the website, and we've looked at the annual report here. And next we're going to go over and we are going to look at some of the historical data when it comes to the stock performances of this organization. So real quick, we are going to look at some of the stock information here on CBRE. We're going to be looking at some of the stock information here on CBRE. Again, I want to definitely emphasize that I do not own any stock in CBRE. I have not been paid. This is not paid advertisement by CBRE. I'm only using CBRE as an example here in the real estate business, in the real estate industry, to create a Power BI report. And here, looking at the stock information, this is just allowing us to be able to research the company from a stock perspective. An individual investor perspective. Now, I said individual perspective because, again, we've looked at research from a couple of different ways. We've researched the website, right? And researching the website, we're doing that from a customer perspective. We're trying to see if we want to do business with CBRE as a customer, if we want to buy property directly from CBRE, or if we want to have CBRE represent represent our company to sell our properties. That's one form of research we've used. The second form of research we've used is, I don't know why this is keep popping up, so I'm just scroll down because I don't know who that person is, and I don't feel like researching that person right now. So we've used the website to research. And then we went over to investor relations and we researched from an investor standpoint. Now I know from the stock standpoint that is investor relations as well, but from the investor relations information, we were able to analyze the 10K report, the 10Q report, to determine whether or not, or to just get some idea of what type of business CBRE is. And now we're looking at it from the stock standpoint, as an individual investor, a person who may not be going to the stock report, going to the investor relations report, going straight to the stock charts to see, how is the stock performing? What are the highs, the lows, the trends within the stock? So we're just doing some additional research, and after we finish this research, we're going to move over and we're going to start creating our Power BI report. So one way that I would use this report is just coming in. I just want to see, what is in this what is actually in this report. And we see we've got a previous close, an open, and a bid and an ask price. Previous close simply is when the market closed previously. If the day was Monday, when the market closed on Friday, what was the close? If the day is Tuesday and the market closed the previous day, which would have been Monday, what was the close on Monday? Or if yesterday was a holiday, or if tomorrow was a holiday, and the market is going to be closed, the next day that the market opens, the previous close would be the day before the holiday. The open price, again, pretty much the same. The open price and the previous close are going to be pretty close. They're going to be pretty close. Not necessarily having to be. There could be some aftermarket. There could be some aftermarket movement going on. So it does not necessarily have to be exactly the same, but it's going to be pretty close. The open price and the close price of the stock is pretty much going to be about this. They're going to be pretty close. The bid price. Let's say someone has shares of stocks and they want to sell the stock. What are they asking for those stocks, and how much are we willing to pay for the stocks? How much we're willing to pay is pretty much the bid price, and how much the asking price is how much someone is asking for someone to buy their shares from them. Let's see, market cap. Market cap tells us what's the actual capitalization of this particular company or the shares, i.e. the number of the volume of shares outstanding times the volume of shares outstanding times the current price is going to give you the market capitalization. And volume pretty much is the number of shares that are currently being traded within that particular time period, i.e. during a day. So the volume of shares traded, or I say traded, but traded could be bought or sold within a given day. That is the volume. The PE ratio is the price to earnings ratio. The EPS is the earnings per share, and the earnings date. The earnings date is the value of the shares. I want to say that's for the dividends, the value of the dividends of the shares as of that date. And the reason why I say that is because I know that the ex-dividend date is the date that you must own the shares in order to receive a dividend for that current period. The number of you must own the shares, whatever the yield price, the percentage that's going to be paid for the shares for that particular time period. It has to be prior to the ex-dividend date, or ex-date as they call it. So let's see here. Let's go over to the chart and let's get a little bit more information on this particular stock of CBRE. We see it currently is selling at a price of $118.96 per share, and that is as of 4/14/2025. Of course, as we move through here, we may see this price move slightly up or down because this is a live trading graph, a live actual price chart that we are looking at. Let's see here. Let's go to the historical data. And the reason why I want to go to the historical data is because this is data that we are going to pull in for the Power BI report that we're going to be creating. Again, I want to emphasize that the stock data that we're going to be using is actual data that we're going to be using. It's going to be data, it may be previous data, but it will be data for 365 days of 365 days of price data for the stocks of CBRE Group Inc. Ticker sign CBRE. It's going to be 365 days of data. I want to say this may be as of maybe a couple of days ago. That's going to be inside the report because the data that we're looking at right now is actual. This is actual information. Now, again, the data that we're going to be using for the stock report is going to be actual data that we're going to be pulling in, actual dates. The other data sets that we're going to be using for the report will be simulated information. It will be simulated data that myself and my team created together so that we could be able to build a data set similar to data that would be used by a company such as CBRE, not CBRE, but a company such as CBRE. The reason why I emphasize that is because it is not CBRE data. It came from nowhere near CBRE data. It's just data that we use that if you are in the real estate business, you will be able to understand the different data sets that we use and the reasons why we use them, how we use them, and then understand how we could build build a Power BI report and data visualizations using those particular data sets. So as we look at this stock information for CBRE, basically it's 365 days of stock information for CBRE, and it's going all the way back from April 14, 2025, and it's going to cover 365 days of data. So it's going to be it's going to go back to April 15, 2024. So as we see here on April 15, 2024, the stock was slightly over $90 per share. It bounced somewhere between 80, 85, 87, 90, 89, 84. It bounced in between the 80s and 90s from April 15, 2024 to coming all the way back to April 14, 2025 to $118.49 per share. So to me, I believe that this company did fairly well over the last 365 days. Again, I am not trying to push you to purchase CBRE. I am not trying to push you to purchase CBRE. I am not encouraging to purchase CBRE. I don't even own CBRE. I am just giving you information so that you will understand the information that we use. And of course, using this particular historical data, we're able to look at the date in which the stocks or the transactions were made, or the stock prices were at different levels, at the opens, at the highs, at the lows, at the close, at the adjusted close, and look at the volume as well of the historical data. So with that said, this is the third way that I like to go about researching company information. Of course, you can go much financial deep into analyzing the data inside of this financial report. I just pulled information from Yahoo Finance. You can do that as well. It is free. Just go to Yahoo Finance and go to yahoo.com, go to finance, or I believe it may even be finance.yahoo.com. Not totally sure, but just go to Yahoo Finance and you can pull this information. It's totally free. It's not something that I just pulled out from some secret place. But anyway, let's move right on over into creating the Power BI report. So as we get started here looking into the Power BI report, we've already brought the data sets in. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over to the model view, and we're going to build out our model. Basically, we're creating the relationships between each of the tables in our data set. So as we can see, we've got a CBRE capital projects, current stocks, financials, and basically what we want to do is we're trying to determine what is going to be our primary table. The CBRE property master is what I'm calling the primary table. In most cases, Power BI developers normally build their models based off of facts, and will build their models off of facts and dimensions. I do the same thing, with the exception of I don't put the facts at the top and the dimensions at the bottom, or the dimensions at the top and the facts at the bottom, which is pretty customary when it comes to building the models and creating the relationships in Power BI reports. What I like to do is I like to given that the tables, the data sets, the model is built off of the star schema, it helps me personally to visualize better whether it helps me to visualize better when I have a table at the center of the star and I can see all of the other tables around the star, as opposed to having the star in the middle and then connecting all of those guys with the dimensions either at the top or on the top row, or the facts on the bottom row, or the facts on the top row and the dimensions on the bottom row. I just like to we get the same output. Well, we get the same result. It's just a matter, it just helps me in my mind visualize better having a table at the center of the star and then building around it. So what we're going to have here is we've got the CBRE property master, which is going to be what I'm calling the primary table, the main table, and then I'm creating relationships based on relationships based on the CBRE property master. And as you can see, most of the relationships are going to be built on property ID. Most of the relationships are going to be built on property ID, which simply means that it appears that most of the tables, if not all, will have a property ID column, and we can relate that table back to the property ID column in the CBRE property master table. For those tables that have dates, those dates will have relationships with the calendar date table. And the calendar date table is not a table that I brought in as a data set for this particular report. As in most cases, I built the calendar date table, and in previous videos, you'll find that I built, if not the same, but a very similar calendar date table. And in most cases, you will probably be building your own calendar date table as well. But there will be times, we're not gonna say most cases, because there will be times where you will be building, where you will be given a calendar table in your data set. But if you're not given a calendar table in your data set, building a calendar table in your data set is not too terribly hard to do. It's just a matter of using the measure here that I'm using, and then building your calendar table. And you will find that using calendar auto, it'll give you, using the calendar auto measure, it'll give you the first date and the last date as given in your table. What does that mean? That simply means that anywhere in your calendar, anywhere in your data set, any of your data sets that are inside that particular report, it's going to find the very first date and it's going to find the very last date, and that's what your calendar auto is going to use to create an automatic table for you. And then you can come back and you can format that however you feel you need to format your calendar table. But here we're now just coming through, and we're over in Power Query. And here in Power Query, we're just checking to see, if all of the tables have column names. There will be times where those tables do not have column names, and we've got to rename those tables or use the first row as the header, which would be your column name, or the table, not your name, column, not your name, not your column name, but the name of the column in the table. So you can use first row as header. In this particular case, it looks like all of these, well, most of these, I'm not gonna say all, but most of these tables, the column name is, the header is already there, so we don't have to use first row as header, which is the name of the column. So we're gonna come back over to the model view, and as we come back over to the model view, we just double checking again the relationships that we've created, because the one thing that we do know is that if we create bad relationships, we're going to have a bad report. If we create bad relationships, we're going to have a bad report, simply meaning if those relationships that we build in the model view are not actually correct, the report and the visualization is not going, the visualizations in the report will not interact appropriately. So the building out the model is super, super important. I don't know if I've ever given it a percentage. I think I have. Maybe I haven't. But the one thing I can say is, if the model is wrong, if the relationships in the model is wrong 100% of the time, if the relationships in the model, if the relationships are wrong 100% of the time, the interactions between the visualizations is going to be wrong. But if the relationships in the model are correct, I'm going to say that that's probably, I'm going to say 50% of building a good Power BI report. Other 50% would be building the actual report, but definitely 50% of building a good Power BI report is going, I'm going to even say 70% of the building the Power BI report. I'm going to go out there on the limb and say 70% of a good Power BI report is going to be based on if you have a good, if you have good relationships, if you have accurate relationships in your model view. Again, if the model view is wrong, your report is not going to be right. Impossible. Your report is not going to be right. Now that does go to note that you can have several tables that are correct. You could have several relationships within tables that could be correct, and several relationships within tables that could be incorrect, which means your table doesn't have to be all the way wrong. But if you are running data, if you're looking at visualizations between two tables and the relationship between those two tables are not correct, 100% of the time, the visualization that's associated with those two tables is going to be wrong. Again, when we are building our model view, what I will say is we like to have one-to-many relationships, either one-to-many relationships or one-to-one relationships, but we definitely don't want to have many-to-many relationships. I'm not going to say that there's not a time where a many-to-many relationship can work. I'm just going to say I don't look for many-to-many relationships. And when you build a relationship between two tables and you find that those two tables have many-to-many relationships, I am going to ask you to make a change to that relationship. That is your key. That is your indicator to understand or to identify that there is a bad relationship between those two tables, and you need to make a change. Again, you may do some research down the line and find that a many-to-many relationship can work in your particular instance. But if you are not sure, if you are not a relationship guru, I am going to tell you to always use a one-to-many relationship or a one-to-one relationship. Well, let me say this: a one-to-many relationship, a many-to-one relationship, or a one-to-one relationship. Never use a many-to-many relationship unless you are 100% certain that that is what you need. What I'm doing here now is I am now just building out the aesthetics of the model view. This is not something that you have to do. This is just something that I like to do. One, because I think it makes the report look good if someone goes into your model view and they request to see your model view, or well, not even or, but in other cases, just having making sure that your model view it looks good. It's aesthetically pleasing. So what I try to do once I finish making sure that my model view and all my relationships, or making sure that all my relationships within my model view are correct, what I like to do is go in and format the sizes of the boxes that the tables are identified in. And again, it's only aesthetics. It's not something that you have to do. We could move on right now and go over and start creating a report. But what I prefer to do is make all my boxes that represent my tables all the same size, all the same width. I am not sure if there is anywhere in Power BI where we can just click the box and say, hey, I want you to be X pixels wide or X pixels high for the reports, for the tables within the reports. I am not sure that there is something out there that can do that. If you know of something like that, please input that information or leave that information as a comment so that I can go back and become more proficient in that as well, to make sure that all my boxes are the same size. The reason why I like to see that having to be the same size is primarily aesthetics, and making the box and making them smaller. It also allows me to place more tables on the same page, as opposed to having to scroll either left or scroll down. I can place all my boxes, all my tables in. I can place all my tables in one visualization pane, so that I don't have to scroll up or scroll down. Again, this is only aesthetics. I even sometimes like to have, if I've got a box or a table on the left and one on the right, I like to have my lines, have the same symmetry. What also throws me off is having a table or having a model diagram where I have several lines that cross. I really don't like lines crossing. I like for the lines to go directly from one table to the next table. But in this particular case, I'm finding it hard to be able to place tables in a location where lines are not crossing, at least in one location. So if I can save, if I'm not able to stop the lines from crossing in several locations, at least I try to get it to get them to not cross in only cross in one location. And in this particular case, I'm finding here that even though if I move the CBRE capital projects table either to the left or to the right, it is going to cross regardless with another table. Well, not necessarily the projects table, but the CBRE financials table is going to cross with another table. And here we're finding the CBRE occupancy trends table is going to cross some kind of way as well. So at the end of the day, you may or you may not be able to get any of these, and I may or may not be able to get any of these tables not to cross. But as far as the lines that are showing the relationships between the tables, but I'm not going to spend all day here trying to stop these lines from crossing. I'm just going to spend enough time to see if I can make this thing look as aesthetically pleasing as I like for it to look. And if I can't do it, let me say this, I don't like to use the word can't. If I'm not able to do it, I'll just keep the minimum number of lines crossing. But if I am able to do it, boom, we've accomplished something. Table's actually looking pretty good at this point. Let's see. I actually have the CBRE calendar table, which has a relationship to the CBRE occupancy trends table. I definitely try to make it to where I don't have a line going behind another table, because sometimes that gets a little tricky and spooky. And then you're not able to tell if that table has a relationship with one table or if it's going behind another table. And sometimes you'll get fooled, or you'll forget that that line is going behind a table as opposed to being directly related to another table. So I kind of want to move that line from behind the CBRE property table that has a relationship of calendar to the CBRE occupancy trends table. It's looking pretty good right here. It's looking pretty good right here. I still have a relationship with the calendar and the CBRE property master crossing, but I think that may be okay. So let's move on to the next phase of this project. So we have jumped over here to the Power BI report. We've done our research. We've researched the website. We've researched the investor relations. We've researched the stock performance. And now we're jumping over here into the Power BI report. And what we are looking at here is the data view. We are looking at the data view, and we jump here now over to the report, and the question now is, what type of visualizations are we looking to bring into this report for real estate? And you know, of course, it's going to depend upon the tables that we have, the data sets that we brought in, and the tables that we have. So here we're just doing a quick overview of the tables that we have here in the data view. Here looking at the stock information, the stock table that we brought in. Again, this is the stock table that we were reviewing earlier. Don't know if it's the exact date that we were looking at, but it is a 365 date range that we're looking at. Just going through the different tables, trying to see what data is in the tables, and two is to double check to make sure that the headers for each column is the actual header. If the headers are not correct, or if the headers that we brought in into the data sets are actually on the first row, what we would do is we go into the Power Query, and we would use we would transform the table to show first row as header. But it appears that all of the tables that we've gone through thus far are appearing to be correct, and well, not necessarily correct, but have the headers in the correct locations. So now we are going to do what I like to do initially when it comes to creating a Power BI report, and that is bringing in a table view to get everything started as far as with the visualizations. Before we dive any deeper into the Power BI report, I want to take a quick moment to share something that could completely change the way you approach your tech journey. I wrote a book called The Six-Figure Cheat Code, How to Make Money in Tech, and it's available now on Amazon. If you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure about how to break into the tech industry, or even how to level up your career, this book was made for you. I break down the exact strategies I use to go from the entry level to building six-figure success in the tech world. It's not just theory, it's a real world roadmap. Whether you're a career changer, a student, or somebody already in the field but trying to scale up, this book gives you the mindset, tools, and action steps to make it happen. So if you're enjoying learning Power BI and you're serious about turning these skills into real income and opportunity, check it out. Again, the title is The Six-Figure Cheat Code, How to Make Money in Tech, available now on Amazon. All right, let's now get back over to the Power BI magic. So I've already created several visualizations. As we can see, we've got the table view that I was bringing in and added some initial data, going back over to the data view, and again double checking column headers, making sure, because it's very important the column headers, that the columns actually have the headers that match the columns, or if the column headers are actually in the correct location. The next thing is looking to see, you know, what type of data do I want to bring in and show in visualizations. I've already created some visualizations: the donut view, the pie chart, the donut chart, the pie chart, the clustered column chart, and the initial table that I was bringing in. Of course, I like to bring the table in initially just to get started. It just gives me a, you know, where do I start here? And where I start here is typically giving me a visualization, and that is that table view that we're looking at. So we've got the pie chart, we've got the donut chart, and we have the clustered column chart. And now we are trying to, create some spacing. Of course, the real estate, when it comes to Power BI charts, real estate is super, super important. Of course, what is probably the most important piece when it comes to creating a Power BI report is the actual the relationships between the tables that we created initially in the model view. But when it comes to the actual report, spacing, the real estate of where each of the visualizations are going to reside is super, super important. Again, we know that the Power BI report is considered to be very similar to a website when that everyday consumer of the report logs in and to look at the report. The first thing they're looking at is spatial arrangements, and the mind is saying, "Hey, this is a website." Of course, we know it's not a website. We can we can bring it into a website, but at the same time, it's not really a quote unquote website. But we have to give that website appeal. We've got to have that graphic design effect, because if not, regardless of how accurate the data is, regardless of how accurate the relationships are tied to one another, the human brain is going to say, hey, this is a piece of mumbo jumbo. It's a piece of junk. And, it's going to go all different ways and not necessarily pay any attention to what we have in the report. So when it comes down to the graphic design nature, when it comes down to the real estate, the aesthetics of the report, it is super, super important. So what we've done here is we've gone in and now we've brought in several cards. And of course, I like to bring the cards in I'm bringing the cards in from the current stock information. The cards can be used. You can use these cards, or you can bring cards in for whatever. I can say whatever, but anytime you're trying to show values and not necessarily having to want to create a bunch of measures, you can bring values in basic tables. You also can bring values in as well with using measures, but for what we're doing here, I'm just showing you how to use a card, how to use a card visualization using the stock information that we were looking at initially. So coming back over, looking at the tables again, what other type of data do we want? What other type of visualization do we want to use? That visualization is primarily, the visualizations are primarily going to be based on the type of data that's inside the tables. Here again, coming back and revisiting the table that has the current stock information in it. Open, high, the low, the close, adjusted close, the volume. What we're doing is we're trying to make sure that the data types are correct. And when we look at data types inside of for stock information, we're definitely believing that they're going to be decimal numbers when we are looking at that stock information. Again, we are just adjusting the size of the size of the visualizations. In this particular case, the visualizations that we are looking at is the stock information. So I'm going to fast forward just a little bit, just to save us a little time, because we're just bringing it. Well, I'm going to say we're just bringing in, but we're bringing in visualizations here. We've kind of reformatted. We're not reformatted, but we've set a real estate position for the stock information to be placed at the top right corner of the report. We've brought in a clustered column chart. We're still using the pie chart and the donut chart, but at this point, what we're trying to do now is get the pie chart, the clustered column, the bar chart, and the donut chart situated so that they would make the most sense layout wise on the page. Again, real estate is very important. We've brought in the CBRE logo. Again, let me definitely emphasize again that this is not an official CBRE report. CBRE is not sponsoring this presentation. I'm just using CBRE as a real estate company to show how we would create a Power BI report for a real estate company such as CBRE, given that CBRE is a Fortune 500 real estate company. Therefore, those guys that are in the real estate business, in the real estate game, I'm sure you guys know who CBRE is. So that's why I wanted to use CBRE. The data sets that we use for this particular report are data sets with the tables that we brought in are simply data sets that myself and my team created for a real estate company, except for the stock information. The stock information is real information that we brought in using Yahoo Finance. You can go out and you can find that information out there on Yahoo Finance. But let's keep moving along. So what we've done here is we have created the real estate and a design layout piece for CBRE. We've created the design layout, the real estate piece for this Power BI report. Now we're going to bring in a slicer. And the reason why we want to bring in a slicer so that we can select locations, we can select dates, we can select times and different things like that. And what we're going to use here in this particular slicer is we are going to use property ID right now. We want to be able to select the property ID to show, to select different areas, to show what is being demonstrated in each one of the visualizations. Now, of course, when we talk about the stock information is not going to change when we select a property ID. The stock information is not going to change. What's going to change is going to be the data that's in the visualization for the clustered bar chart, which is showing sum of actual costs by project name. In the donut chart at the bottom, we're seeing percentage of total amount by category. And in the pie chart, we're seeing the count by ownership status by property type. And in the column chart, we're seeing square foot by property name. Now, when we select the property ID, of course, the property ID is going to narrow it down to just one particular property based on that particular property ID. When we select a state, now we're able to see the different the differences in each one of the visualizations just shown by state. If we look over to the stock information, we'll see it says high, low, close, and volume. I don't want you to be misled there. What we need to do there is change that high, the low, the close, the high, the low, and the close to an average, so that we can see what the actual day is. If we put in a date slider, we'll be able to see the high, low, and close by date. But we must change that from a sum to an average. When it comes to that aggregation in those cards. We're not going to have time to build out a complete finished product for CBRE, for a real estate company. But as you will be able to see, this is going to give you a super jump start if you are looking to build a Power BI report create a Power BI report for a real estate company, a real estate firm, or even the overall real estate industry as a whole, as long as you have the data. Again, this data that you're looking at here is data that myself and my team created, except for the stock information. The stock information is actual stock information. Now, if you look at the high, low, and close, and the high, low, close, and volume here in the stock information for where we are right now, and if we were to click the card here in this report for, let's just say, high, what this is doing right now is that it is summing all of the days of stock information, the stock highs for the last 365 days. It's summing all of the lows for the last 365 days. It's summing all of the closes for the last 365 days. It's summing all of the volume for the last 365 days. Here's the deal. That is not a way that you would want to present that. You want to present that as what is the actual high, low, close, and the volume of a particular day or a particular date range. Right now, we don't have a date slider in here, so that's not going to make a whole lot of sense, but we could put average in there rather than summing, and that would give us the information we're looking for. That would give us an estimate, an average of what that number is that we're actually in search of. So we have formatted the page. We've got the teal green color that seems to be a color that's pretty close to the CBRE color that's used on their website. So we've got that pretty close. We've brought in several tables, not tables, but several slicers for CBRE, well, for the report. We've got the property ID, we've got the market and the location state for the report. We've got the stock information being the high, low, close, and volume. And again, please understand that that's not that 29.63 thousand and 28.93 thousand, 29.29 thousand is not the actual stock price. That's we still have to format to show the actual day price, but what's really going to make that have the most sense is to have in a date slider in order so we can see it by date. What we're doing now is we're coming in and we're formatting the visualizations, and as you can see, the visualizations we formatted. We're changing the color of the border of the visualization from black to white, and we are rounding out the corners. You know that one of my favorite corner rounding values is 10. So we're rounding all the visualizations. So we've rounded the visualizations so far to have rounded corners by 10. The thickness of the borders for the clustered column chart, the bar chart, the clustered column chart, the pie chart, and the donut chart, we have made the thickness to be a 3, and got a little slight issue there. So we're gonna go back and back arrow out and get this color back to where it was. I didn't mean to have that background color to be white, because then it whited out the visualization, the value, so we weren't able to see the value. Now we're going to come back in. We're going to round the corners for the cards to be a 10 as well, so that they could match the corners on the visualizations at the bottom. And we changed the border of the slicer to be a 3, so that it could match the border thickness of the visualizations on the bottom 2 rows, but at the same time, the thinness of that border, even with it having a white border, it's just too thin to actually see, to really give a good visual aesthetic, a good visual appearance. So we want to make that border a little thicker for the slicers, just as we did for the 2 rows here at the bottom, being the being the bar chart, the pie chart, the donut chart, and the clustered column chart. Moving, as we were making the visuals for the pie chart, changing the format for the visuals of the pie chart, we found that we accidentally moved and shifted the pie chart over to the left somewhat. So what I did was I just went back in and slid that back over to the right and tried to match that with the same sizing of the same location as the bar chart to the right, and the column chart to the right and the bar chart there to the left. So again, what we're doing here is we're going in, and now we are just rounding the corners, trying to make the visualization for the slider to match the visualizations for the rest of the page, given that we have rounded corners of 10 and we have borders of 3. Also, we see that the values were slightly bigger, and we were not able to get a good visual appearance for the values. So what we did was make the values a little bit smaller so that they could actually fit inside of the cards a little better. Now we're coming over and we are formatting the slicers. And the one thing about the slicer is, so I mean, we could have a transparent slicer, or we could not have a transparent slicer. It just depends on, what is the most visually appealing. But right now what we're doing is we are formatting the borders to be the same as the borders, which is the white border with the width of 3 and the rounded corners of 10. But as we look at the borders, what really gets me when it comes to sliders, and having sliders, have slicers, drop down slicers on backgrounds that have color to them. Oftentimes that transparent background may not look as visually appealing as we would like for it to be. So what I like to do with the slicers is I like to make the background of the slicer there where it's showing all where those values are going to be. I like to have that background to either be white or some color that will that would offset well with the that will, I guess, be comparable to the colors that are in the background. And as you saw, when I did the drop down there in the market slicer, we're not able to see the values, because when we did the drop down, the value is actually a white text and the background is a white text. So what we really want to do is probably change the color of the text to maybe either a teal green or to a black, and then change the background color not to be that green, but make that background color a white. So as we see here, we're not able to see the values because the value has a white text and the background is white as well. So we've got to figure this out. We've got to figure this out. We've got to make some changes here. And the changes that we're looking at initially is we're going to come down, we're going to go to visual, and we're going to go to values. And we see that font color for the value is white. We're going to change that to be either that teal color, or we're going to change it to be black. More often than not, when we're looking at drop down colors inside of a drop down, we're looking at text colors inside of a drop down slicer. It's very common for that color to be black. Now we've changed the background of the value to be white, and we changed the text color to be black. So we're going to do that in each of the slicers. We're going to change the background color to be white. We're going to change the text color to be black. And also in the location state, we're going to change the text color to be black, and we're going to change the background color to be white. And we're going to see that when we do a drop down, now we can see the colors and they blend in. It makes more sense to have that color than any other color. And we could have changed that color to be any color. White is just a standard color for a slicer of this nature, but we could have any other color than the text having the same color as the background color. Any other color could work. You know, again, we're talking about aesthetic appearances, your graphic design appearances. That's what's really going to determine, you know, what you think is going to make the most sense. If you wanted to use a lot of different colors, and say you wanted to use the background color to be yellow and the text color to be green, that would work, because what we were really trying to get out of there was being out of changing the background colors and the text color, is being able to see the actual text color against the background color. For me, I like to use the white because it doesn't give us too many colors. We know we've got colors that are going to be used, or we've got colors that we're using in each one of the visualizations. So if we change that background color to be one of the colors in the visualization, that could make sense. I just didn't do that. That's not something that I normally do. Typically, I would go with white, regardless of what the colors are in the different visualizations, because white is, I believe, it's going to always work when it comes to a background color. That's just my personal opinion. I digress. That's just my personal opinion as to why I choose white, and what are the other options that can be selected. So here we are just looking at the visualizations. We're seeing what format is going to work best, or if we have the best format for the visualizations. And as we can see, all of the text, a lot of the text colors in the visualizations are a dark gray. So what we're doing now is we're changing those text colors to become white, whether they be headers or whether they're the headers, whether they are in the legend. We're changing all the text colors to become white so that we are able to actually read the legends, read the values without having to strain, read the titles without having to strain our eyes to see what those values are, what those legends are, what those titles are within each one of those visualizations. And as you can see, if we have a visualization selected and we make a formatting change within that visualization. So as we near completion of this particular report here for CBRE, we're gonna one of the last things that we're gonna work on, or we're gonna format, is colors of the different visualizations. I like to use complementary colors of the colors that the company's primary colors. Again, this is not an official CBRE report, but based on the information I pulled from that I got from the website, I saw that the teal color was that was pretty close to the color so that they actually use on the website. So I actually went over to ChatGPT and I said, "Hey, Mr. ChatGPT, with this particular primary color, can you give me some comments? So give me 5 to 10 primary. Give me, I think it was 10 primary colors. 10 complementary colors for this particular color." And basically, I took the top 5 or 6 of those colors, and those top 5 or 6 colors are the colors that I decided to use within this particular report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the complementary colors that I pulled from ChatGPT, and I'm going to use those colors as the colors for each one of the visualizations. Again, this is not an official CBRE report, and no one gave me, or CBRE didn't give me any colors to use. But typically, when you are working with the client is going to give you colors to use that they use within their organization. If they don't give you the colors to use, it's up to you to do the best you can in order to make that happen. Again, given that I didn't get colors from CBRE because this is not an official CBRE report, I went over to ChatGPT and asked for complementary colors for what I consider to be the primary color for CBRE. And these are the colors, these are the top 5 or 6 colors that I received that I'm going to use in this report to make this report have the visual appeal. So as you can see here, this is the official final report that I came up with to create for a real estate company such as a CBRE or any other real estate company or company within the industry, within the real estate industry. So As I said before, the colors that I chose, the color wheel that pretty much I created, or not necessarily I created, but that I selected were the colors that I just went over to ChatGPT and I said, hey, Mr. ChatGPT, give me complementary colors for this primary base color. The primary base color that I put in, I forgot what that hex color was, but it was the color of this teal color here. And I received this color, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I used the top 5 colors, and the reason why I know I asked for 10 colors. The reason why I know that it's the top 5 colors is because this visualization, this donut visualization, actually is it has the most number of colors within the visualization. One thing that I didn't change, I'm not going to go back and change it right now, but if you go back and you look at the headers here, these titles within this visualization is actually black, and I really want that's really kind of bothering me. Let me bring this back over so I can see it on my big screen, and then I'll bring it back over to you and show you the changes that I made. I want to make changes. Let's see here. I want to make changes within this visualization so that these titles are actually white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to format, let's see, go to visual, and I'm going to expand all categories. I'm going to change this color because that black color is bothering me because we are not necessarily able to read those titles. So what I am going to do is change those title colors because I want to be able to read it, and I want to be able to tell you or show you the difference. So as you can see here, now those titles, this title was black, this title was black. I wanted it to match the white titles that we have in the top, in the first row. Reason being is when they're black, you can't really see it, definitely against a dark background. So what I did was I went into format and I changed the title to be white. So, and that's just over into format, general, and then here is my color that I selected. So all of my titles, the titles for each one of the visualizations now is white. Also, something else that I want you to pay attention to as well. I did not bring in a date slider. Reason being, it's a lot of information here on this particular report. I could have brought it in and I could have placed it up here somewhere, but I didn't. But what I did do was I was telling you that in each one of the cards, that the cards had a sum to it. The card had a sum. So basically, what I did was I went in and I said, hey, give me the average. So basically, when I said give me the average, it actually gave me the average of what the high, the low, the close, and the volume was, which is more spot on to be what the high, low, and close is on a given day. Now, of course, since we're talking about the average, we're talking about the average now over the last 365 days. So this is the average high, the average low, the average close, and the average volume over the last 365 days. If I had put in a slider, put in a date slider, or some way of selecting a specific date, then making that an average would give me that day's actual information. So I just want to throw that out there. But again, I try not to use, at first I was saying I really didn't like to use more than six visualizations on a particular report. Here I've got 2, 4, the title is a visualization as well. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So really I'm averaging about 10 visualizations on a report. So I'm going to go out there and say that you probably want to have somewhere between 8 and 10 visuals on a report. I've got 11. If I make something smaller or something bigger, we may go up or down in that visualization count. But anyway, that's what I wanted to, this is what I wanted to show you. This is the actual final product of the CBRE report. Again, highly emphasizing that I do not work for CBRE. I do not own stock in CBRE. I don't think I own stock in CBRE. I'm not 100% sure, but this is not a paid sponsorship product from CBRE. This is just simply something that I chose to use to demonstrate to you how to create a Power BI report for a specific industry. And in this particular case, the industry that we're talking about is real estate. So with that said, what we are going to do now is we are going to close this video out. We're going to close this class session out. I hope you were able to learn something. I hope that this really you were able to really grab something from this video and in this class segment. So once again, thank you for joining in, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.